Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel. My name is Angela Gravely. I'm the VP of Learning and Organizational Development at PFG, and we're really excited today to talk about the art of leadership. So I'm just going to jump right in with our first amazing question, and it's all around the successful steps you've taken to adapt your leadership style to shifting team dynamics, generational preferences, and evolving organizational goals without losing consistency in direction or expectations. And I know, Betsy, you were very excited to jump in on this question, so I'll lean in on you first.
Yes, thank you so much, Angela. Hi, everyone. My name is Betsy Kopiski. I am the Vice President of Human Resources and Talent Development at Premium Waters Incorporated. And I have to start off by telling a little story. So several years ago, I was grabbing lunch at the little cafe in our building, and I was paging through a magazine article, and it said the happiest people on earth. And I'm like, well, where is that? Well, of course, it's Costa Rica, right, in this article. And I thought, well, yes, they're happy because they live on a beach and it's beautiful every day, all day. But as I started reading the article, what I was reading is that these people truly understood their purpose in life. They take pride in what they do, and they find a way to have pleasure on a regular basis. And so that methodology or that theory, purpose, pride, and pleasure, I brought into the workspace. And so with sitting down with the teams that I've worked with, our accounting team and my own HR team, we talk about what is our purpose. And then we talk about how can we celebrate that and be mindful of the fact that we're working together, we're working cross-functionally, we're working towards common goals of our corporation. And so its purpose, pride, and pleasure is kind of that little three-word nugget that I've taken with me over the past several years in developing and leading teams.
I love that. Jane, what are your thoughts on some steps that you've taken?
So I have a large group. I'm sorry, I'm Jane Antelov. I'm the AVP of Patient Access for Geisinger Health System in Central Pennsylvania. I have a pretty large group. So getting to know the teams that I pull together is very important. And there definitely is, you do have to manage people differently, younger people versus older people, different expectations, different goals, different motivators, for those two teams. So you do have to pay attention to that. But the biggest thing I try to do is give everyone a voice. We know what our project is. We know where we're going. We know what the goals are, making sure it's a clear expectation, and then giving everyone a voice about how we get there. Here we are. We need to go here to meet our goals. There's so many different ways we can do it, but giving everyone a voice and then learning to compromise. Everyone, okay, we'll go this way with yours, but then we're going to take it this way with yours. Doing that compromise. So it can't always be a win-win, but you can get close as long as you give everybody a voice and help everyone to understand what the goal is and making sure the expectation is clear. That's what I've been able to do. And then huddle with the teams when there's trouble or there seems to be barriers, trying to help them get over those barriers seems to be helpful. And then celebrate when you get there. When you finally meet the goal or expectation, really celebrate with the team.
Yeah, I love that. I think very similar to both of you, right? I really think leaning in and meeting employees and our associates where they want to be met. Mm-hmm. And I love, being able to hear their voice. And for me, I like to just stay curious and open to those shifts in dynamics. But I love celebrate. I'm a huge change management ambassador. And I think sometimes we forget in all of the chaos, sometimes we're so busy trying to get the project done and who are we communicating to and who are we training that we forget to celebrate. And it's so important. So I love that. And speaking of communication, I'm going to jump to our next question. So What communication practices have proven most effective in fostering psychological safety, clarity, and team cohesion? You know, especially during periods of high pressure or a lot of change that's happening. So, Jane, I'm going to circle back to you.
So every year at Geisinger, each team has to choose one thing they're going to work on that year, whether it's better communication, better building a rapport with other groups. And for the last couple of years, I've had at least two of my teams choose self-care, do the self-care model. And our HR department has done a fabulous job of doing pre-recorded sessions on self-care. We have yoga classes. I took a cooking class. I don't cook. I just don't cook. My sister told me when I was 12 I needed to marry well or have a good career because I had no domestic skills. So I don't cook. But I took a cooking class and it was so much fun. So encouraging my team to go outside the box. Don't just stay focused on work all the time. We do need to stay focused. We do need to meet our goals. We do need to meet our productivity, but we can also do it with fun, having fun. I just did a team building session with one of my groups, and we zip lined and we rock climbed. Doing those things outside of the work really helps with that psychological um, uh, piece of it, and it builds trust within the team. So my teams are so much more cohesive by doing those things outside. So then when they are on teams and working on a project, they really click so much better.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about well-being later, but I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's so critical. I mentioned just moments ago my passion for change management. So one, I follow a mantra of clear is kind and unclear is unkind, right? And I really think even though sometimes we have to have those tough conversations, I remind myself that I am being kind by being very clear. And so that really helps me as a leader get through those conversations sometimes. And I've even, when we talk about psychological safety, I've gotten feedback from people that, even though we had a tough conversation, they were so appreciative of really understanding where we were going with the conversation, and they felt safe because they could too, be very clear in their thoughts and their opinions. So I lean heavily on clear is kind, unclear is unkind. I find that really helps be transparent, create that safe environment while setting those clear expectations of what we're here to do together.
I like that.
I agree with that, Angela. I'm Frederica Hayes Norman. I'm the CHRO AVP at Fair State University. And earlier today, I had one of those clear conversations with a team member. And, I started out, I want you on my team, but I have some different expectations, and let's talk through those. And it was a good conversation with the team member. They appreciated the conversation from me regarding expectations, and they shared some expectations of theirs that, where I can and I shared with them, I want to help you achieve those goals where I can. But also in the end, part of the conversation was they think they want just something different. And my conversation with them was, I'll help you get there.
Yeah.
Because I do think that's my role here. If this isn't a good fit, how can I help you get there? They're a valuable member of this company, of this university. And if this isn't the right fit, how can I help you get? And you know what? They already had their eye on another position. And I'm like, okay, how do I help you get there if that's where you want to go? So I think that I love the clear is kind and unclear is unkind. That is so on point with people because we're not being fair to individuals if we're not clear, but also have that willingness to help.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, Frederica, you're so right in your statement of how can I help you get there? You didn't take on the responsibility of that transition, but you're willing to be that helping hand. And people need and appreciate that, but we can't own it. We can't
Yeah.
own somebody else's career. And I think sometimes newer managers and leaders take on that responsibility, and it's sort of setting them up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
So true.
I agree. And kind of building on that, Frederica, when we look at how you identify and cultivate individual strengths in a way that doesn't just boost performance, but it deepens that team interdependence. And, to our point about ownership, mutual accountability.
Mhm. So, how I identify and work with the team is, we have a lot of one-on-one touch bases where I learn about them, and we all have different learning styles and different delivery styles, and recognizing those different styles of my individual team members, but then how do they immerse together so that the team is successful? So we have individual meetings, we have group meetings. I tend to kind of set kind of the subject areas and then stand back and let the conversation go. So that helps where some people come out as a leader in a certain area where they have expertise and where they're comfortable. And then how do I engage to make sure that that strength that they've shown helps everyone? And I think that, also helps in the conversation where we recognize people have different strengths and people have areas where they're not so strong, but how do we come together to help that? Um, and I think that's very important. We are all different. We all have different skill sets and um, and strengths and weaknesses. But as a team, we come together and help with that. And so, I've got some people, they're great in certain areas, and I'm like, hey, can you help me with that? Because that's not my area. So even as the leader of the team, you can help me.
Mhm.
And building and showcasing those strengths and areas of need. I won't call them weaknesses, areas of need.
Yeah, I love that what you said is in the one-on-ones, I sit back and I learn. I wrote that down because I think that really resonated with me because again, you're going to see people, kind of float up to take on a leadership role and also have a better understanding of where there are opportunities. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Jane, when you think about mechanisms, we're gonna kind of talk about a culture of recognition here, but when you think about mechanisms or rituals that you've put in place to build that culture of recognition that's, not only authentic but inclusive and tied to both values and of course outcomes.
Yeah, I am again big on celebrating. We like to celebrate everything, and even the simplest things like, oh my gosh, you are my top collector this week, or just from the frontline staff all the way up to my management team. we all have metrics, we all have goals, we all have KPIs. We got that we've got to meet. And when we do, and we track those, and so when we do, it's not just okay, we met it again and keep rolling, keep rolling. No, we meet weekly to go over a lot of our metrics. And during that meeting, we call out our leaders, and so it's almost like a friendly competition now. They, like, and they gig each other like, oh yeah, 2 weeks in a row, I got this, and so we make a big deal out of it. And we do, we celebrate even personal things within our groups, birthdays and things like that. My team loves to eat, so and I got some great cooks with some of my teams. And like, okay, we're gonna just everyone just bring something. We're gonna do a lunch or a late lunch or and then it rolls over into afternoon shift because I do have staff in the hospitals that are there 24 hours a day. So we try to include all the different staffs, including, coming in at 6 in the morning. I've done that, coming in at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to, celebrate with my night shift staff. It's just important that you include everybody, I think, in the celebration. It can't just be, one team or another. I've got multiple groups within the hospital, and with healthcare, we have weeks. There's patient access week, there's financial counseling week, there's business office, all those, and we do celebrate all those, and we make those big. And I send out notifications throughout the hospital about, this is patient access week. If you see a registrar, tell them great job, or celebrate with them. So, just trying to get it out there, and not just within my team, but outside, with the other areas, with operations, so that they know that everybody has their role. But if my registrar did not register that patient and get that account set up, the doctor couldn't document, the nurses couldn't document, nobody could write orders. So everyone's an important part of that patient's care, including the clerical piece, my team, and then billing on the back end. So trying to get that out to all the other areas of the hospital, so they recognize that the importance of them. And it really has made a difference with my group to know that they're just as important as anybody else on that care team.
Yeah, it is so important to be recognized. Betsy.
Definitely. Yeah. Wow. Yes. So I'm in a little different situation than Jane. Most of my team is not with me, and we're all over the United States. Some work remote, but we have HR people at our manufacturing plants, and they're the HR person at that location. And so finding the time to celebrate and have some fun together is always very important. So first of all, we talked a little bit about one-on-ones already, and so it's having those one-on-ones with the team. Most of the team I meet with bi-weekly. Some I meet with weekly. It just depends on the role and what's going on. But I always try and make sure that we pause, because time, I think, is the most precious commodity, right? And if I give them that time and attention and help them solve problems, and wow, sometimes I'm just listening to them vent because they're dealing with something, and I don't need to fix it for them. That's not what they're asking for. Just what's going on, and how this is frustrating, and it's a time thing. Now, I will tell you, just in one of the opportunities with our team too is Jane was talking about the ability to voice yourself. And on our team, when we talk about strategic initiatives, we definitely all have the voice. I also try and give them choice. And so, what is your strategic area of interest? Is it talent acquisition? Is it workforce planning? Is it learning and development? And so for those folks that have the time and inclination to help at a corporate level versus a local level, most of which do both, trying to give them that choice, and then letting them shine with a passion that they just love by working on something at a corporate level, and then getting that recognition, not only from our HR team, but also from our executive leadership. It's a win-win for everybody. They get to work on something they're passionate about, and we get the benefit of their talent. It's fabulous. It's so motivating. Just love it. Just love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really invaluable, right? Is letting people rise to the occasion, and really that executive presence, because I think that's where it happens, when they're able to step out of their day-to-day job and shine. I'll just say a couple things kind of at an organizational level, right, on rewards and recognition. We've had some pretty good success with our program, and we've tied it to our cultural norms and values. And what I have seen come out of that is just the wonderful peer-to-peer recognition, and the takeaways that we take from those recognitions, that we're learning how to show up for one another and how to live those values that we have said are so important. I'm gonna move away a little bit from rewards and recognition and communication and talk a little bit. Let's have a conversation around the role of coaching and feedback, right? So, Frederica, when you think about coaching and feedback, what role does that play in your team leadership module? And, how do you ensure that that feedback flows both ways, right? That's really important to foster that continuous improvement and build that trust.
It's a significant role. I go back to, I had some wonderful coaches, my own self. And some of the things that I learned from them are some of the things that I use. I had coaches who, I could just talk to about things that I was experiencing, things that I was learning. And so I try to mimic that myself, because there are two particular coaches in my career that I quote today. And one of them I still have contact with. And those were, former leaders and supervisors that I reported to, and I just so appreciated how they helped mold me. So I see that as a model. And with that is listening, feedback, coaching, uh, even, that gentle direction sometime where
Yeah.
I may have gone off the rails. So looking at that as a model. And I try to use that now. And I have found actually where I'm at now, someone who was with me at a prior company, I actually saw that they were looking for employment, and reached out to them and said, "Would you come join my team?" And they did, and they are doing great here at the university. So it's things like that, recognizing skill sets, supporting those skill sets, and then providing other opportunities for additional skill sets, I think are just things that we should do. And in some cases, supporting people in areas that maybe they didn't think that they could be successful in,
Yeah.
and just saying, what do you think about this? And do you want to try this? And I've had that opportunity here at Ferris with two individuals, actually three, where moving them into areas where they didn't think that they were good at, but I saw something and gave them the opportunity. And I saw it, they didn't see it. And just taking that time, that if you see something in someone, and not just the negative thing, but the positive things, going, do you think you want to try something different here? And giving them that opportunity where they may not have thought.
Betsy, anything you want to share around coaching and feedback?
Sure. Yes. So I've already talked a little bit, mentioned get together with my team for regular one-on-ones. Throughout our organization, we try and do at least biweekly check-ins, if not more frequently. We encourage that of all of our supervisors and managers. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal sit down, but we try and encourage them and train them to say hello, know their name, maybe know, a little bit more about them. But what I think one of my big takeaways that I've added to how I do my check-ins with my team is before we get off the call, I absolutely always end the call with, well, what can I do to help you? What do you need from me? And give them an opportunity to say, you know what, I really need this or that. And quite frankly, most of the time we've already talked about it, so there isn't anything additional. And then another question that I ask, I don't ask it all the time, but I have added it in the past, is what can I do differently? Is there something I need to do to help you differently? Do I need to engage differently? Do I need to approach you differently, communicate differently, reward you and acknowledge you differently? What is it? And so it gives them an opportunity then to provide me some feedback on things that I can do differently that might have been a blind spot for me. And so I appreciate that as well.
Much of the same
Yeah.
that's already been talked about. You know, I do weekly one-on-ones, even if it's 30 minutes. It's that touch base that Betsy was talking about. I think it makes all the difference. It makes you accessible to
Yeah.
your team.
Mhm.
So, you know, yeah.
I've seen we have started taking coaching experiences deeper in our organization. I think sometimes when we provide a coach to employees, it's usually at the executive level. And I think there's so much value in coaching. And so we've started taking it deeper in our organization and really seeing some benefits. First of all, just the investment in the associate, they feel that investment and the opportunities for growth. But what I'm really seeing, which is kind of organic from taking coaching deeper into the organization, is our leaders are starting to really see the difference between coaching and feedback, right? Because they truly are two different conversations or two activities. So that's been really exciting to see, that light bulb go off for our leaders, because now they're going through the experience, so they have a deep understanding of the importance of coaching and how it is different from feedback.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody is necessarily ever asking for criticism. They're
Yeah.
asking for coaching.
Correct.
Yes.
And so I
Right.
think we have to take a minute and say, okay, they're not really wanting me to pick on them about how they did this and how maybe I would have done it differently, but help them maybe even see the bigger picture. At our company, several years ago, we actually started offering coaching training to anyone that wants to take it. It's 6 hours of training with a professional coach. It's not me. I mean, we actually hire somebody externally, and it helps people frame their thought process for providing that coaching versus criticism. And I think that the folks that have taken it now can appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to call it a subtle difference, but it's not so subtle if you're on the receiving end, right?
Yes.
But as the giver of the information, I think it sometimes can feel subtle. But yeah, it's been very successful, so people appreciate.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love the thought of you know, internal coaching.
Mhm.
That's right. When we think about, we talked a little bit earlier about well-being, right, Jane? And I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts on how you balance the need for high performance, right? Because we have to get the job done, but with the imperative to support employee well-being, because it's so crucial, especially when we're managing and leading diverse teams that have different work styles, right? Different life experiences. So I'm just curious, who would like to jump in and talk about balancing high performance and well-being?
I have some to share. So here at the university, our office is actually responsible for student employment, which is a whole nother generation, shall I say,
Yeah.
that is very interesting. And so, and we're talking about individuals who were doing who started high school during COVID. So a very different workforce. So I have the more what I would say traditional workforce, and then our someone called it the Gen Z coming up. I learned that today, and um, we in our student employment role, not only are we trying to give them experience for the future work world, but we do have work for them to do, real work. And working with the various groups of work styles versus this Gen Z coming in, and they're coming to HR and go, we need help. And so I've had the opportunity of working with some of our student employees and preparing them for and having conversation about when they get a real job.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
as I'm working with supervisors who say I have real work, and they're coming to the table very, very differently. So it's been some interesting conversations between the different expectations of supervisors and student employees coming in, and having conversations with our Gen Z about real work world and expectations, and yes, you're a student employee, and those type of things, and that balance of those two work worlds, I guess I would say. And that there is, trying to talk with, our supervisors like me, who we had our traditional world and so on, and now we're talking to people who want to be more electronic and mobile and not necessarily in workspaces. Um, Talking to those supervisors, trying to understand what is coming in our world now, but also then talking to the students about, let's talk about a real job when you graduate and what the expectations are,
Yeah.
and what an employer will or will not expect of you. And so those have been some very interesting dynamics and conversations. Some have been successful, some have not been. I've had to have some very straight conversations saying that's not going to work in a real job.
Yeah.
And this is what real
Thank you for
employment
doing
will look
that.
like, and this is what will happen to you.
Yeah.
Where I told one student, you will be fired. That will not work well. And then that one student actually went all the way up to the president of the university on me. And I had to tell him, I had a mom conversation with him, what I would tell my own child.
Right.
Yeah.
Work world.
Yes.
And
Good
he
for
said,
you.
You
Yeah.
said that to him? I said, yes, and I meant it. And so, but I said, I'm more worried about when they leave here,
Right.
that they
Yeah.
actually are successful, and that they don't take some bad behaviors with them.
Right.
So that has been a very interesting dynamic of my experience here at a university of, you have student employees and then you have regular employees, and just that different expectation. And interesting here, we have more student employees than we have regular employees
Mm.
Wow.
here at the university. And so trying to work through that process of expectations, and the expectations are very different now.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Well,
On
thank
all
you for
parts.
having
Right.
those mom conversations. I
Yes.
appreciate
Yes. Thank
Well,
you.
the corporate world.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I love the fact, Frederica, that your supervisor said, no, this is real work, because it is real work. I mean,
It is real
especially
work.
with the comment about your population. And
Mhm.
again, this goes down to, it was going through my head, purpose, pride, pleasure, right? They need to
Mhm.
understand that there is a purpose. Yes, I know they're a student, and I understand that it's not going to be their lifelong career, but the work has a purpose, and they can
Yes.
find a way to have pride in the product that they're producing, whether they're working in the cafeteria or working in the
Yes.
library or research assistant, it doesn't matter. And then of course, you build in some fun, whatever kind of fun you
You
might
do.
have at a university with student employees, whatever that means. But it is important that people understand if they're getting paid, there is a purpose.
Yeah.
There is
It is real work.
Yeah.
Regardless of how long they might be there, right?
So
Yeah.
true. And I love what you said. I think it doesn't matter what role you have, it's there for a reason,
correct.
for purpose. And it's important, right? It's important. Every single job links back to, our goals and our strategy and, what we're showing up to do. So I love
Right.
that.
Right. And in our industry, because we make food product, we encourage our employees to go out and look at our product on store shelves. Now, it might be different in your businesses on how you can show them that, what they're producing is important, if it's surveys or, graduation rates or whatever the case might be. I think they need to see a connection between the work that they're doing every day, and then that output and what it really means to the community and how the community takes it, whether it's
Yeah.
durable goods or food or education or being in a hospital, right? I mean, that's really important, right? I want
Yeah.
that to go well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
that's very important to help all employees understand the why.
Yes.
And our why
Yes.
as students, and one of the things we do is we engage in certain student activities. Move-in week is so cool here, and we all volunteer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I see that was just 2 weeks ago. I see my team come back like so motivated, and I think it's important to encourage that. I encourage that. It's not required, but I encourage it, and I do it too. And our biggest thing is we drive golf carts around to help the parents and the families and move in. It is moving week is so cool here. And finding that purpose and how people can have an opportunity to participate in the purpose outside the regular work. I think is if there's opportunities to do that, like go look at the food on the shelves. Well, that's why what we do every day and why we do it. And
Yeah.
giving those opportunities to move it away from just the routine.
Yeah, I love that. Betsy, I'm gonna steal your idea of, going out and seeing the product, right? So
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
in food distribution.
Okay.
I love that idea to go and, share with our selectors that when they're picking product, right, go to a restaurant, you
Yeah.
pull that off the shelf and put it on a truck so
Mhm.
that it could get to the
Yeah.
chef to make the meal, right? I think
Right.
connecting the dots is
Yeah.
important. I
Yeah,
love
totally. I mean, that just gives, I think, anyone a sense of pride, right? When they
that.
see
Yeah.
what they've done out in
Mhm.
industry and out in retail
Yes.
or whatever the case might be, it's kind of automatic. Just you
Yeah.
can't help but feel proud when you see your pretty product sitting there, right? Or being used even better.
Exactly. So let's talk about, cross team alignment and cohesion, right? And this is like, crossing the aisle, right? Working with different departments and functions. And many times I know we run up against conflicting goals. So Frederica, talk to us a little bit about, what strategies have helped you with that cross team alignment and cohesion.
So I think, obviously at a university and we're in our roles far away from the students and the whole mission of the university. But some of that is like in our operational side, and I have the HR and benefits side. Payroll, who we work closely with, is in the business side. And then we need things from our various college and departments to make things work well. So one of the things tomorrow we're celebrating, it's our first payroll of the year. so we're celebrating. But what I did was bring in the people we work with from other teams. We're having lunch together tomorrow, which we normally don't do. And we had some major system changes, including a new college added to our portfolio that it was just a tough entity or tough process this fall. But we're celebrating, and some of those colleges were the people who had to do the work to get information to us. We're inviting them to our celebration. We're all going to have lunch together, which we normally don't communicate like that. And payrolls coming to the lunch, and it's called "We Made It." That's we made
I
it
love
through
that.
the first payroll. But
Perfect.
we have not pulled other teams in like that. But without each other, we wouldn't have made it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
And I
so
think,
it's that
yeah, go ahead.
recognition that we needed each other to be successful and get through that first payday of the year tomorrow. And I had someone say, I talk to people on your team, I've never met them. And so literally we're going to have lunch together. And I said, it's not about work. It's just, we made it and we're going to see each other face to face. which we don't do. We're a large university, huge campus, and we're not all in one city either. We have
Yeah.
multiple sites. But during that type of thing, and I think then having that non-formal conversation develops the deeper relationship as we have to do the other hard work of
Yeah.
what we do.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that you're appreciating payroll, because the only time payroll gets a phone call is when
If there's an
You
issue.
don't get paid.
when there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Correct.
We got to start calling payroll every time we get paid and it's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe not every time, but no.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show some appreciation for what they do. It's definitely a thankless job.
It is it is that department, it's so important and so critical, but it is a thankless job.
Hmm.
Well, let's talk a little bit about leadership development.
Mm.
And I'm gonna lean in on Jane first here, share with us in what ways you're investing in leadership development across all your levels of organization to really drive a leadership culture that really lasts beyond individual leaders and
Yeah.
endures.
We've been trying, we have a new CEO, and he is big on uh, uh, coaching and, supporting leadership, and he loves to read. So he's given us a couple books. So we at my team, I have 7 direct reports. So we're reading a book right now, Reset, and it's great. We just got started, so don't ask me about it yet. But but there are some things in there that, yeah, I have a strong leadership background as far as school, and I love to read, so I've been pulling out some of the other books that we all build or we all learn our leadership skills. I think someone else had mentioned, you have a couple of people who mentored you. Same here. I quote them. I have 2 in particular that I've really, kind of grew up with when I first got into leadership. Between that and my love of books, I have developed a very inclusive, open leadership style, and I share that with my team. I'm constantly giving them some of my books to read, and we talk about it. We talk about, what did you like about that? What didn't you like about that? Do you think it can work? I just had one read the 360 servant, and he was like, there's no way. There's just no way I could do that. I don't have enough time in the day. I'm like, you don't have to do it every day, all day long. But, just picking out pieces and helping my team develop their leadership style. You don't have to do my style, and no style is wrong. No style is, no, I mean, unless you're a bully as far as a leader, no style is wrong. Everybody, you can be inclusive, you can be, whatever you're comfortable with. So, and that's what I try to tell my team. There's no, there is, as long as you are respectful, there's no wrong leadership style. And there's no one is strictly one leadership has a leadership style. You kind of have to go with what your team is doing and kind of flow with it, to make sure that everybody feels a part of the group. So doing the reading, being open about my style and the way I like to do it, and then hearing about how my team likes to lead. And they ask questions, we do that back and forth, well, what about this or what about that? You're just being open enough so that your team feels comfortable enough to come to you about things.
Yeah.
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 Well, I've got some thoughts on this topic. It's my favorite topic, is leadership development. So I'll try and be brief. So first of all, just on the book clubs, Jane, we also offer book clubs. So we have a program that we've called the Leadership University, and folks that want job enlargement, become trainers, and then they can train on topics that they're comfortable with and that they've team taught with. And so right now we offer like 36 courses internally with internal facilitators on everything from conversations in careers and compensation to having a difficult conversation, providing feedback, all of that stuff. And so people can just sign up. Anyone can sign up and take one of those courses. We also have a pretty robust leadership program called Leadership Academy. That's a 13-month program. That's mini MBA style. You have to apply to be in it. And part of the curriculum is doing some reading on books, but then also doing a real project for the business. And so typically, like this year, we've got a smaller group. I've got 11. They're working on 2 different very specific projects for the business. And then in December, they present their findings to the executive committee and everyone else in the company that wants to listen in. So we've got that as well. But a newer thing that we're doing, and I borrowed this idea from another company, is we have tuition reimbursement. We added loan reimbursement because, well, it ends at the end of 2025, but for the last several years, it's been not taxable. And so we added loan reimbursement as part of the program. But my favorite one, and the one that the employees seem to love the most, is we now offer tuition gifting. And so what that means is I'm not enrolled in higher education right now. And I know that I'm not going to use my tuition that would be available to me to, improve, myself. That doesn't mean I can't go to seminars or anything like that. But I just sat talking like going to Ferris State University and taking a class. Because I'm not going to use my amount, I can gift that to my dependent. And so as an employee, you can gift your tuition amount. It's taxable to your dependent. Up to the IRS limit is the max you can do. And then you can give it to your dependent to continue education. And we've probably had about 50, maybe 60 people use that program this year for their kids and their dependents that are in school. So
Wow,
not
what a
only
great
are we
That is
trying to,
amazing.
yeah,
That
not
is
only are we trying to
amazing.
educate our own folks through our internal programs, through tuition and all of that, but trying to educate those folks too, or the kids of the people that
Yeah,
have been with us. So yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
We're modernizing our leadership development program, right? And I too love leadership development, and we're really putting a focus on the experiences, right? Making it more immersive, adding some peer-to-peer conversations, and
That's great.
yeah. We too do in one of the, I'll say, pathways of our leadership development program. We ask our business leaders to define business challenges, and it's really their capstone project where throughout the program, they're working in a group on a real life scenario for our organization, and they present out at the end of their program to
Awesome.
leaders. So
yeah, what you described seems very similar. That's great. I'm glad it's been successful. How many years have you been doing it, Angela?
So that pathway's been in place for about 2.5 years.
Wow.
That one. We're we are building a new one right now because we found our mid-level and frontline managers really need more development opportunities. And so we're looking at really a 12-month potential program there. And, as I was mentioning earlier, taking coaching deeper into the organization, we're implementing cohort coaching.
Okay. Yep.
With that group. So very, very excited about that.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. Jane, Frederica, anything you want to share on, leadership development in your organization?
Yeah, we're actually redeveloping our leadership academy, and also looking at, I love the idea of the leadership university, because we don't have the benefit of hiring our leaders at the same time.
Mhm.
So we need this interactive and just-in-time process that we're working with, and actually uh, sending out next week to our current leaders saying, what would you want someone to know as they come into your area to help build the cadre of opportunities we have for leaders as they come in, because sometimes we promote from within in some of our areas, and there's an assumption people have skill sets that they don't have, and then we
Mhm.
become frustrated because they don't exhibit certain skill sets that we assumed they had.
Yes.
So, trying to not work on the future, not just work on the future leaders, but also work on the expectations of the supervisors of those leaders, so
Mhm.
that things are successful and more smooth in the process. We just actually hired a leadership development person in HR to help build those programs, because it's so necessary for the success of our entity.
Most definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Time and talent doesn't necessarily equal leadership.
Correct.
Right.
Very
Right.
Best
true.
technical person
Very
might
true.
not be the best leader, but they can learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. Agreed.
Well, what a great conversation. It's been so fun to spend some time with you all this afternoon, and I learned some things, so I'm very excited.
Likewise.
I may be reaching out. But I
Yeah.
really heard some key themes from all of us today. Celebrate, right? Let's make sure we
Mhm.
celebrate. Purpose, being clear is kind. So I thank you for your time. And just as a reminder, we're doing a virtual Q&A session for this panel. So please submit your questions to connex@connexpartners.com, and they'll be responding on the digital platform. So thanks, everyone.